This guy Teddy Jackson is right there with his camera setup trying to promote his product called Teddy Band, which are these resistance bands that are supposed to help you build big muscles. He's all excited trying to show off how elastic they are and how much resistance they have, really going for that whole look how strong these bands are thing. But of course, the band snaps back and smacks him right in the face. Then he switches to this other product, which is basically a black plastic garbage bag that he's trying to pass off as some kind of revolutionary workout gear. He puts this thing on and claims it's going to help you burn fat like crazy, but the problem is he can't breathe or sweat properly in this plastic nightmare. So naturally, he starts getting all dizzy and lightheaded until he just straight up faints on camera. He's also trying to sell this adjustable pull-up bar thing. And he's all confident about it, talking about how great it is and how it's going to give you the perfect workout. But the second he grabs onto it and tries to lift himself up, the whole thing just collapses and crashes down. The video just cuts off right there, probably because he's lying on the floor under a pile of broken exercise equipment. Meanwhile, way out in the middle of nowhere in the Utah desert, there's this super scary assassin guy who everyone just calls the Man from Toronto. He shows up at this creepy cabin where he's supposed to make some poor dude spill his secrets. But before Toronto even pulls out any weapons, he starts telling this really messed up story. He's all calm and casual about it, explaining how he was raised by his grandfather at some frozen lake in the middle of nowhere, where his grandfather taught him all kinds of things. Then Toronto pulls out this knife and starts sharpening it real slow while he keeps telling his story. He's going on about how his grandfather got skinned alive by a bear, which you'd think would be scary enough to make anyone talk.
Bears have very sharp claws, which they use to fillet the skin off their still-breathing victims.
But the prisoner is still trying to act tough and not saying anything. So Toronto just keeps going with his creepy story, explaining in detail how after he removes the guy's eyes, then his ears, and basically every single one of his sensory organs, he's going to fillet him just like that bear did to his grandfather. He's describing this whole process while sharpening his knife, and it's when he finally brings that blade close to the guy's face that the prisoner completely breaks down and goes, "Nope!" and tells him everything he wants to know before Toronto even has to use it. After Toronto leaves, whoever hired him just shoots the guy anyway, because apparently that's how these things work. Back to Teddy, who's getting ready for his big bay with his wife Lori. Now Lori really does love this walking disaster of a husband, but she's not blind to the fact that he screws up literally everything he touches. Her co-workers at her job have actually started using teddying things up as their way of saying someone made a huge mess of something.
No, you can't teddy that one, right?
What does that mean, honey?
That's what they call it at the firm now. If a paralegal screws up, they say they teddied it.
They named a screw-up after me?
Teddy decides to be all romantic and books them a nice weekend at one of those Airbnb places, but because his printer is running out of ink or toner or whatever, he can't read the address properly. This is important later, trust me. On his way to work, Teddy is walking around all happy and excited, handing out these flyers to random people on the street. Then he gets to work and has to deal with his boss Marty, who's looking at these exact same flyers Teddy made for their gym. The problem? These flyers don't have a phone number, an address, or basically any way for people to actually find the gym. Marty likes Teddy as a person, but he's got no choice but to fire him because, well, Teddy is completely hopeless at his job.
Let me show you something here. See these flyers you made up? I spent my entire marketing budget on these things, and we ain't got one bite. If you had put the address on this thing.
Then they'll call you, Marty.
You left out the phone number, too.
Did I?
Toronto goes back to his place, which is basically this ultra-fancy, ultra-modern, ultra-technological criminal lair/house. He starts making breakfast like a normal person when his phone rings. It's someone he calls the handler, and she's basically his boss who gives him murder jobs. Toronto just wants to chill out and eat his eggs or whatever, but the handler is like, "Hey, I've got this job that pays $2 million. And suddenly, Toronto is interested.
$2 million fee.
With respect, I'm listening.
The job is simply to take out 2 people, so he puts his delicious breakfast aside and gets ready to head back into the game. Then we see Lori packing up the car, getting ready for their romantic getaway, while Teddy is back in the house. She asks him about his job and this super new idea he had, and this is where Teddy starts lying through his teeth. He doesn't tell her that he got fired, probably because he doesn't want to ruin her birthday with the news that he's once again unemployed. Meanwhile, Toronto is cruising around in his super fancy car when he gets another phone call from the handler. She gives him the address of his target. Then we get to the spa scene. Teddy takes Lori to this really fancy spa for her birthday. We're talking about the full luxury treatment here. He reserved a whole expensive package for Lori. He drops her off there so she can get pampered and relaxed, and then drives off to what he thinks is their romantic getaway spot. But remember how he couldn't read the address because the paper printed without much ink? Well, that comes back to bite him in the butt in a big way, because instead of going to a nice Airbnb where they can celebrate properly, he ends up at the exact same cabin where Toronto is supposed to meet his next victim. What are the odds, right?
I don't know.
What is...
Some big, tough-looking guys are watching everything from inside, but they greet him like they know him. And well, Teddy figures one of them must be the Airbnb host, so he walks in without a hint of fear. But the bad guys in the cabin see Teddy show up and think, oh great, the scary Toronto guy is here. Teddy starts talking about everything he brought for his big romantic night, and these guys have no idea what kind of hitman this is, but they play along anyway.
Champagne. That's to celebrate. And this is just a warm-up. You know, when you ain't did it, then wild things can get a little animal. Gotta tap into that danger zone.
Then drag him down to the basement, where they've got none other than a man hanging there, you know, all set for them to play with him in ways that hurt. Here Teddy realizes he's in some serious trouble and tries to calm down this guy they've got tied up. But the poor hostage is so scared that he just blurts out whatever information the bad guys wanted.
Back up. Put the hammer down, back up. Y'all, you crowd me. Now, what you need to know is that I don't know what is going on. I would hate for your eyes to be next on my activity list. Look at my thumb, because it's the last thing you're going to see. Look at this. Is that what you want?
No.
Just say it!
44-508-1253C.
Then suddenly there's this loud bang and smoke everywhere, and FBI agents come crashing through the doors. Then a massive shootout breaks out between the bad guys and the cops, and Teddy bolts out of there until he gets caught.
What'd I do?
The FBI agents sit Teddy down and basically tell him, look, we know you're not the real Toronto because you seem way too nice, and also you keep asking for your mommy. They need someone to pretend to be Toronto so they can catch this bad guy named Sebastian Marin. This Marin dude used to be a big shot in Venezuela but tried to take over the government last year. The Americans stopped him, but he and his wife Daniela ran away before anyone could arrest them. The FBI wants Teddy to keep pretending to be this scary assassin so he can get close to Marin and help them catch him. While they're telling him everything they actually know about Toronto's real identity, the man himself finally shows up. He's dressed as a cop, blending in, trying to see what kind of intel he can get on all the madness going down. Back to Teddy, they assign this super handsome agent named Santoro to babysit Lori while Teddy is playing pretend assassin. Teddy is immediately jealous because Santoro looks like he belongs in a magazine.
Who is he?
I'll pose as your wife's personal butler.
Not passing my wife off to this man. Good-looking man like this. Why can't it be his ugly ass? Why can't he go? Stop your ass right here.
In exchange for working with the FBI, Teddy asks them to pay off all his taxes and debts. And let me tell you, there's a lot of them.
I got a tax lien that I've had for quite some time. I also have an American Express debt. There's a visa situation that's the same.
Visa?
You can pay that one off. I owe my cousin Carl $300.
The real Toronto finds out about this whole mix-up, and the handler gives him Teddy's information. Toronto looks at Teddy's awful fitness videos and is probably thinking, are you kidding me? This bumbling fool is who people think I am. He tracks down where Teddy is just as the FBI agents are taking him to meet Daniela. Since Teddy never told Lori he got fired, he has to lie and say he's going to some boring work conference. But she's not exactly worried. She's being very well taken care of by Santoro.
DC shopping excursion, private dance lessons.
Sure.
Don't you serve me, you cut the shit.
Ain't gonna be no dancing.
I'll take good care of Lori.
That's Miss Jackson.
The police slap a tracker on Teddy and send him off on his mission to Washington, D.C., and Toronto is watching everything from a distance. Finally, the meeting begins. But instead of meeting her husband Marin, Daniela has her guys kidnap Teddy and take him to this airplane hangar. Toronto forces one of the FBI agents to drive him there by pointing a gun at him. So a chase kicks off, but Toronto stops this cop from radioing it in, feeding him a fake location for Teddy instead.
You have a visual on Jackson.
Negative. He ditched the tracker. I think he ditched it.
Toronto ends up tossing him out of the moving car anyway. Toronto manages to shake off the cops, and before you know it, Teddy is on a plane heading to Puerto Rico. While they're flying, Toronto somehow gets onto the plane. He reveals himself to the bad guys, and they still think Teddy is the real deal.
This man is an imposter.
No, stop. You're an imposter and cut it out.
To prove he's the actual Toronto, he starts killing Marin's men like it's no big deal, and has to save Teddy when they both almost fall out of the plane.
Can't we do this without violence?
Don't pull that lever!
Oh, for the love of God, we almost died.
Once they're more or less safe, they finally have some time to get to know each other, and Toronto's a little frustrated by how useless this guy is. So he chucks the FBI tracker and Teddy's phone out the plane window, and then punches him right in the nose.
Give me a little silent treatment for the rest of the journey.
What you just did was mean.
Back in the city, Lori's out with a friend, having the time of their lives with Santoro. Meanwhile, Teddy and Toronto barely manage to land the plane in some random field. And while Teddy does nothing but complain about everything, Toronto's busy turning the plane into the most flammable object on the planet. So it blows up right behind them. The handler calls Toronto and is super mad at him for not killing Teddy because apparently their rule is to never leave witnesses alive. Toronto tells Teddy they need to find this guy called Mr. Green and bring him to Marin since Marin has already seen Teddy's photo and thinks he's Toronto. At a golf course in Miami, we meet another assassin called the Man from Miami, who's beating up some guy with a golf club.
You're crazy.
Miami gets a call from the handler offering him money to clean up this whole Toronto mess. He says yes, and then uses his golf club like a rifle to kill another golfer who saw too much. These assassin guys are really creative with their weapons. Toronto brings Teddy to this big tech convention where they're supposed to find Mr. Green. He gives Teddy a crash course in how to act like a scary killer, which is basically like trying to teach a golden retriever to be a shark. He gives him pep talks, gadgets, accessories, even dresses him up to look just like himself. Meanwhile, Teddy gives him a little demo of his so-called no-contact boxing skills, which, unsurprisingly, doesn't exactly impress a professional assassin.
Never box at me again without actually punching me in the face.
Then he snaps some photos of him in a photo booth, and the two hop on an adorable Vespa. Then the scene shifts to a lively nightclub. They get into an elevator, and Toronto tries to get Teddy to really get into character for the mission. And Teddy has no choice but to go along with it.
You're gonna go in there, and you're gonna give him your scariest look, complete the mission, or you have no idea what I'm gonna do to you.
I got it. So whatever you were gonna do, you don't have to do to me.
I wasn't gonna do anything.
Toronto slips a device into Teddy's ear, and Teddy says goodbye with a warm hug.
Don't ever touch me like that again.
They arrive at a hallway, and Teddy has to enter a room where he's supposed to meet Mr. Green. Luckily, Toronto is on the other side of the hall, guiding him through the device in his ear. After getting past the first guard with a 19th century poem,
"Oh, the bleeding drops of red."
We're on the deck. My captain lies.
Falling cold and dead.
The man from Toronto.
they let him into a room full of men and bring him up to speed on the situation. They also bring out 4 guys who are all tied up, and Teddy has to figure out which one is Mr. Green. He freezes up, but Toronto cheers him on.
I'm scared.
You can do this.
And you will.
And then Teddy starts really getting into his role. They give him knives to torture them with, but Teddy accidentally drops them, and these guys start to get suspicious. He quickly regains control, and suddenly, the knives come out. But while Teddy's trying to play tough, he accidentally cuts one guy under his eye and freaks out. Then he gets so grossed out that he throws up on 2 of the guys, which is probably not standard torture technique. But it works, because one of them says he's green just to make the vomiting stop.
I'm green! I'm green, please stop!
Oh, God.
Green!
That's green.
But then the main bad guy notices Teddy's earpiece and realizes something's fishy. He's about to shoot Teddy when Toronto bursts in and kills all the thugs. Then he does this really gross thing where he cuts off Mr. Green's thumb and puts it in a bag. Why? Don't ask me. Assassin logic is weird. They're trying to escape when Miami shows up and starts chasing them. He throws Teddy off a ledge, but Teddy manages to grab onto some decoration and hang there like he's in a video game. Toronto and Miami start fighting, while Teddy is dangling and probably regretting all his life choices. Miami almost gets the thumb, but Teddy falls on top of him and Toronto knocks him out. Toronto calls the handler for an update, and Teddy overhears enough to think the handler is lying to Toronto about something.
Your handler just lied to you. Talking about her repeating the question. That's a clear sign of stalling and lying. I used to do it all the time.
They get on a plane to Washington, D.C., and Toronto basically tells Teddy he knows he's a complete screw-up based on hanging out with him and watching his terrible fitness videos. When they get to D.C., Teddy calls Lori and they make plans to meet at some fancy restaurant. The FBI knows about this because they're probably listening to everything. Teddy brings Toronto along and tries to teach him how to talk to people normally, which is probably like trying to teach a Wolverine to play nice with puppies.
I want you to relax. Somebody looks you in your eyes and they smile back.
Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in this, sir?
That's not the type of eye contact I'm talking about.
They meet up with Lori, who brought her friend Annie. Toronto and Annie actually hit it off pretty well.
Deborah is, 1969 Dodge Charger 440 RT.
That was a car?
The 440 RT is not just a car.
With 8 cylinders of big block, high torque horsepower, it's a weapon.
But then Teddy sees Miami walk into the restaurant, and they have to run. Miami catches up to them in a coat closet, where he and Toronto fight again. Toronto gets shot in the leg, and Miami steals the thumb and runs away. Teddy and Toronto keep chasing him and end up stealing a police car because apparently that's just what you do in these situations. While they're driving to Marin's hotel, Teddy asks Toronto about some job in Minnesota that keeps getting mentioned. Toronto explains he was supposed to kill this guy, who owed money to some really bad people, but he couldn't do it when he saw the guy had a kid. But then the guy went and did some really terrible things later, so Toronto felt bad about not killing him when he had the chance.
Set the man free.
Well, how would you know he was gonna do that?
He said, if you set me free, I'm gonna go on a rampage.
Toronto says after this job is done, he wants to open a restaurant and stop being an assassin, which is probably a good career change. At the hotel, Maureen and Daniela meet with the handler in Miami. They try to use the thumb Miami stole to set off some bomb that's supposed to kill the Venezuelan president, but it doesn't work because Mr. Green was actually the main thug guy who did the interrogation, not the real Mr. Green. Oops! Teddy shows up still pretending to be Toronto, even though the handler is trying to tell Marin he's not the real deal.
Last I checked, I know about me. So what do you know about me that I may not know that you know? I'm done with the whispering. I know who I am. And don't you tell me who I'm not. You smell that? Because I do. There's people trying to play games with the man from Toronto. You don't play with me. I do the playing.
The FBI crashes the party and arrests Marin and Daniela, but the handler in Miami managed to escape. Toronto grabs the money that the handler was supposed to get paid. Teddy rushes home to find Lori, but the house is empty. She left him a note saying she's going to her mom's house because she has no idea what's going on with him anymore, which is probably fair since he's been lying about everything. The handler starts calling other assassins to come kill both Teddy and Toronto. The next day, Teddy finds out Lori is going to be at the train station, so he runs there to try to catch her before she leaves town. Miami finds Teddy first and tries to kill him.
Where is he?
But Toronto shows up and saves him, saying he didn't want to see Teddy die.
You came back for me. Yeah, I thought of you dead, just didn't sit right. I'm going soft.
Then they get surrounded by even more assassins. The man from Moscow, the man from Tokyo, and the men from Tacoma. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of these man-from-killers running around. They all run into Teddy's old gym, where Toronto kills all the assassins like he's playing a video game on easy mode. Miami corners them outside, but Teddy finally finds some courage and punches Miami so hard, he knocks him out. Of course, Teddy breaks his hand doing it because he's still Teddy.
He saved my life.
I broke my hand. Yeah, that ain't normal.
The handler shows up wanting her money, which is in the trunk of Toronto's car. She starts chasing them and shooting grenades at them, which seems like overkill. And they end up at some factory. The handler has them cornered with a gun, but Teddy pulls a lever and drops her into a big vat of boiling hot liquid, where she dies in a really unpleasant way.
No, I did that. I done boiled a goddamn white woman because of you. You gotta just die.
I think you just made human tempura.
It smells like gas, though. But like gas, like fuel.
Oh, shit.
Toronto lets Teddy take his car to go catch up with Lori. Teddy makes it to the train station and apologizes to Lori for lying about everything, and they make up. But then Toronto's car gets completely destroyed by a train because Teddy left it on the railroad tracks, and all the money goes flying everywhere. Then the police tackle Teddy because of course they do. 1 year later, Teddy and Lori are about to have a baby. Toronto opened his restaurant like he wanted and is dating Annie. Teddy's no-contact boxing gym actually became successful, but Toronto still wants to kill Teddy for destroying his car. And that's how the movie ends.